Welcome to Education Matters, presented by the Public School Forum of North Carolina. I'm your host this week, Jennifer Rifkin. I'm thrilled to be joining you for this special episode featuring student leaders from Hyde and Durham counties. These students have and continue to advocate for themselves and their classmates to improve their school communities for everyone. Today, they're joining us for a conversation on the power of student voices to create positive change. Joining us today, we have Rose Golonka. She's with Students Against Sexual Harassment, SASH Club in Durham Public Schools, along with Gabe Campos, also part of SASH Club in Durham Public Schools, and then Essie O'Neill, Student Health Ambassador at Hyde County Schools, along with Aislyn Brinn, also in the Student Health Ambassadors Hyde County Schools. Thank you all for joining us. So we'll start with our first question. Tell us about, and this is for Essie or Aislyn, tell us about the Student Health Ambassadors for Hyde County Schools. What does your group do and why?
So we serve as student members of the School Health Advisory Council, and we attend health-related meetings once every month at least. And we are there to identify and address any health-related student needs. And we usually plan to take about 2 health-related issues in a year and kind of delve in and work on solving those issues. And we do this because we think that it's best to have an inside student kind of input to better relay the true health needs of students. So that maybe adults that don't always know what's going on can get kind of the inside scoop. And we typically attend one meeting in person at our sister campus. So Aislyn is over at Mattamuskie today, and I am here on Ocracoke. So we take at least a trip at least once a year, a little ferry field trip over to the other school and just attend a meeting and collaborate with one another.
That's great. So you're getting to kind of hear the different voices and elevate voices across the county. It's not just centralized in one location. Great. Can you share an example of an issue students at your school were facing and how your group brought attention to it?
I can let Aislyn answer for her own school as well, but I know the example that we have had for Ocracoke is one issue that we've tackled in the past year or so has been student breakfast. And, we've had multiple students complaining of fatigue midday and hunger in the mornings, and that affecting their ability to focus in schools. And because of that, we brought it up to our superintendent and we brought it up to our staff. And we eventually, after lots of hard work and effort, eventually we were able to get a student breakfast for our kids and also get a snack time for our kids as well, for kids of all ages. Ocracoke is K through 12, so it's important to have that for all ages, I feel like.
Yes, absolutely. And you were able to kind of navigate that process along the way, right? It wasn't a simple fix, but you were able, yeah. And I really appreciate the fact that there was also just not breakfast, but like we need to sustain this energy throughout the day. So how can we also incorporate snack? Aislyn, what would you add?
Our school has been having a lot of problems with middle school and high schoolers vaping all day, every day. We've had an assembly educating and the students, middle school and high school, and we even had our local health department come and talk about the habits of vaping and the outcomes. We've done a lot, posters, meetings with parents, trying our best.
I really appreciate that you're bringing in the parent perspective too and trying to build that partnership as you share this information. Great. So we're going to shift to the SASH Club and would love to hear from Rose or Gabe. Tell us about the SASH Club. What does your group do and why?
So as you said earlier, SASH stands for Students Against Sexual Harassment, and we're a student-led club at Jordan High School, and we focus on education, awareness, and community action. So we address sexual harassment and gender-based harm, but overall, our goal is just to create like a safer, healthier environment for every student at our school. SASH is actually part of a national organization, and we get a lot of our resources from sashclub.org.
And for the why, it's just because these problems affect us as students as much as they affect adults, and it's not really talked about very often, how these problems with sexual assault and harassment affect children and teenagers and students at school. And we find it very important to tackle that here so that we can deal with it in a way that maybe adults aren't thinking about dealing with it in the schools, and just advocating so that the problems can be solved.
Yeah, I think that's great. You're raising awareness, you're pulling on some national resources, you're supporting the education of this community so that folks can be empowered with that knowledge, right? Can you talk a little bit about why it was created? I know you mentioned it was a national organization. I don't know if you can speak to that context, but like, what inspired this in your school particularly?
Jordan SASH Club was actually started by my older siblings, Jane and Daniel, in 2022. They saw a real need for educating peers about sexual harassment and all just these issues in general, because my sister and my brother, they witnessed it every day. My brother's graduated, but my sister is still the president, and I'm continuing her work next year since she's a senior. But we started the club because we believe that every student deserves to feel safe, and students are the most effective, important part of changing a school's culture.
And sometimes just that peer-to-peer comfort in having those conversations can support that culture that you're wanting to build of trust, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this question is for the entire, to both groups, so you can decide who wants to respond. But both of your groups are tackling some pretty serious issues. We're talking about health and safety and well-being. Why is it important that students be part of these conversations?
I can take that if y'all are okay with that. I would say that it's important that students are a part of these conversations because it's important to get that student connection of student to student. And I feel like it gets you have a better understanding of what's going on as a student more than, say, a teacher or a staff member would. And we're kind of more knowledgeable about some things just because of our age. You know, we're a part of the same age group, so we're a little bit more connected, kind of. And I think it's really important to have an inside perspective and know what the real opinions of students are, you know, and not just what adults think those opinions are.
Would you like us to respond to this question as well?
Yeah, if you would like to add anything, that'd be great.
I kind of alluded to this earlier, and I think Essie put it nicely, but just these, you need the student to student connection there. But also these issues affect us, kind of as I said earlier. And if we don't talk about it, and if we don't bring it up, like Essie said, adults might not really understand and might have this preconceived notion of what we think about it. But unless we raise our voices and unless we really put out there what we need and our needs and how these issues affect us, changes is going to happen that we need to happen. And so it's very important that we talk about it and we have our voices be heard, because these issues affect us personally.
Yeah, you're elevating concerns that your peers are expressing to you, they feel comfortable sharing with you, and might just be flying under the radar of the adults in the building. Great. All right. Do you think this is about your skills learned? So throughout this process and being part of these different clubs and initiatives, what have you learned, or have you developed any specific skills?
I'll actually take that one if everybody's okay with that.
Sure.
So I've personally learned how to publicly speak to a lot of people way better. I was really bad at it before, but I feel much confident. I also feel a lot more confident educating people about harmful substances that they might not know are harmful. I feel like I can educate people way better.
Yes, hopping on Aislyn's point, sorry to interrupt, Jennifer.
No.
But hopping on Aislyn's point there, I feel like
also it has helped me a lot also to learn how to make connections on a personal level. It's helped me kind of elevate my skill doing that. And then also, it's given me a better education on topics like vaping and nutrition so that I can be able to better educate my peers on those subjects.
So many more opportunities to help our club and improve student outreach. But really importantly, I've also learned how to collaborate with all different kinds of students and people in different communities, including adults, and networking with all different kinds of people, which is a really important skill.
All of you really stepped into these leadership roles, building your capacity to learn about these issues, to express and share them with other folks, to collaborate and problem solve. And it's really apparent that you are all doing such great work. After the break, we will continue our conversation about the impact of student voices. Welcome back. Let's hop right back into our conversation about the impact of student voices with current North Carolina public school students. What are some ways, going back to SASH specifically, what are some ways SASH tries to educate and engage other students?
Right. So we have weekly meetings on Monday mornings where we really focus on teaching some power topics like consent and boundaries and supporting each other as students, as peers, and just really creating a safe space where these topics can be talked about and people can be informed on these things. And then we also have some holiday events like Misogyny is Scary on Halloween and some teen dating violence education on Valentine's Day, just to really hit those big days and have people kind of come in and have some fun events that educate and build community and build a safe space.
We also collaborate with all like different clubs, but also different schools. We had a joint event with Durham School of the Arts where there was a guest speaker on period poverty and healthy relationships. And also, as April comes up, since it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we have a bunch of plans starting on April 7th, which is the day of action. And we'll be doing events like Denim Day and also having a Take Back the Night March, which we're partnering with Duke for.
A lot of intentional relationships and partnerships that you're building to elevate your work. Excellent. Even if it's not always measurable, how do you know your work is making a difference for other students? Rose or Gabe? Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me is just people feeling comfortable talking about it, right? The more work we do, the more people feel safe having these conversations. And they're not easy conversations, right? This is not an easy topic. And I feel like it's been made taboo a lot, especially by adults. Like, this is not something that adults maybe feel comfortable with teens talking about. But I think having this space and having this community that we've built to encourage people to engage, and just seeing that kind of come back in the form of, gaining the ability to speak about these things. And I know Rose said that a big skill she's learned from SASH is just public speaking on these topics. And I totally agree with that. I think that's been my main takeaway too. And I think the more students are able to have these tough conversations, that's where our work shines.
Yeah, you're giving them the language to articulate the challenges that they're facing and slowly, ticking away at that taboo. Go ahead.
We've also had some tangible impact. We've raised money for Durham crisis response and have collected period products and donations for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault in general. So we're also helping victims as well as.
So what was it like the first time you saw something that you advocated for and actually got implemented at your schools? Again, for Essie and Aislyn to answer.
I can take this one first. And I would probably bring up the topic of our school breakfast and our school snack again. We put a lot of hard work into that. We've sent out multiple different surveys and, just went around asking students what do they want to see at the school? And overwhelmingly in the past, it has been, we want a school breakfast. So I feel like being able to, that goes back to your other question that you just asked, but I feel like getting their needs fulfilled and getting that problem solved for students made us feel good and also made us be more trusted as people, get her done people. People that are actually going to try and solve the issues that you have as a student.
I think Ocracoke has done a really good job of bringing in these new ideas from students like Essie who want change, and I really think they're doing great.
Yeah, you saw that it was a process to implement any sort of policy change, and collecting data and getting information really supported that process and making sure that it was implemented well.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what role do you think schools play in meeting students' needs beyond academics? And we can start with Rose or Gabe here.
This school is where young people spend most of their time, right? This is where they have their friends, their community, their safe spaces, their safe adults, right? And their teachers. And, a lot of times if they don't feel safe at home, school is where they find that comfort. And I think creating a safe environment in both the adult spaces and having safe adults, but also having safe students that you can go to and having these student communities that you feel safe in. I think that's very important, right? And creating a good culture that will help, make good people and help these people feel safe and comfortable and grow into themselves as they grow up.
And they can carry that confidence and all the skills that you have supported them in learning into the spaces beyond school. Great. All right, so this last question is for everyone to answer. What advice would you give a student who's interested in advocating on a particular issue, but isn't sure where to start, or if that's even something that they can do as a student?
Yeah, absolutely. I think my personal advice would just be start having these conversations, right? If this is a difficult conversation that maybe you don't know how to advocate on, just talk to your friends about it, bring it up. And it's going to be uncomfortable because these conversations aren't comfortable, but sometimes we need tension to make change, and just don't be afraid to talk about it and create some of that positive tension. And that's where advocacy starts, in these conversations, in these important conversations.
I know that for SASH specifically, there were so many options. I mean, there were resources online to start. There's an online club for students that can't start locally. There's national youth leaders. I mean, and I think that's so true for every topic. If you care enough, you can find a way to make a difference. And if you're passionate and you're committed, you can make an impact.
I know a lot of schools have ways to start student clubs. Like if you want to get in contact with an adult and you feel very strongly with this about this subject, ask a teacher to sponsor a club, or get something started at your school.
I have to say, I absolutely agree with all of that. I think that the first place that you need to start if you're interested in advocating on a particular issue, whatever that issue may be, I think the most important part is having a conversation. And that conversation can be with a student, a peer, a teacher, even maybe. But it's important to start off with a conversation, and then you can maybe start getting people to kind of rally behind you in support of your issue that you need to solve. And it can be, extremely beneficial to have that person supporting you. The person that you start that conversation with can start a conversation with 5, 10, 20 other people, and then you have a whole army of people behind you ready to support your issue, to support the solving of that issue. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with both. I mean, all three of you. Y'all explained that so well. I think that if you want to advocate for something, the first step you really need to do is talk to people, get your ideas out. I mean, I think if you're really thinking about these changes that you want to make, people will believe in you and follow you if you express that you want something to change.
Well, what great advice. Elevating ideas, beginning conversations with folks and starting your network, being passionate and committed to that cause and creating that positive tension that Gabe mentioned. All great ideas and ways to start your student initiatives and elevate student voices. So just want to say thank you to all of you for joining us and the great work that you're doing. You are an inspiration to many students across the state, and we are paying attention.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
After the break, this week's final word. There's a phrase we hear often in education: student voice matters. It shows up in mission statements, strategic plans, conference panels, but too often it stays an idea we agree with rather than a practice we commit to. Fortunately, students are challenging that. Amplifying student voices isn't just about students being heard. It's about them being trusted. It's about being taken seriously enough that what students say can shape what schools do, teaching them confidence, responsibility, and a host of other skills. When the student health ambassadors in Hyde County noticed hunger was a problem among their classmates, they asked questions, they gathered data, and they made a case. And because adults listened, something changed. Students now have access to breakfast during the school day. That shift, being ready to learn instead of struggling with hunger, can make a real difference in a student's day. In Durham Public Schools, students in the SASH Club didn't wait for someone else to address issues of harassment, safety, and mental health. They stepped into that space themselves. They created opportunities for conversation and connection. And in doing so, they helped shift the culture of their school to make it a place where more students feel seen and supported. These initiatives likely would not have grown in the ways that they did had students just been invited to share their opinions. In order to address real issues affecting them and their peers, these students were trusted with responsibility and the space to lead. And importantly, they were supported by adults who were willing to really listen first and then help students act. Investing in student voice is just as much about improving schools in the short term as it is about preparing future leaders for the long term. These opportunities help develop the skills that make strong communities possible: critical thinking, collaboration, communication, and the confidence to speak up. We're also sending a message. We're telling students that their experiences matter and that their insights are valuable. My team at the Public School Forum has heard many times from many sources that people want public schools to prepare students for life. Life is constant decision making. When students are trusted, they lead. When students are supported, they grow. And when students are heard, they help create schools that work better for everyone and get to see that impact firsthand. What better preparation is there? Thank you for taking the time to learn and think about education with us. That's all for today, and we'll see you next week.